Hello, hello, hello. My name is Candace Sims of Conceptual Empowerment, and this is my bi-weekly group support meeting that I host every other Thursday starting at 6 p.m. And typically when I don't have visitors to come to the group meeting, I still have something to share or a lesson to do. So I decided that I would go ahead and record a little bit about what's on my heart, what I'd like to share with you guys who are out there struggling with things that are going on in the world today, that are not unifying us, that's um, dividing us really, and keeping us isolated, um, discouraging us from meeting together due to COVID and the illness and the virus. And there, excuse me, there definitely is something going on in the air, not just in your community, not just in your county, not just in your city or state or country. This is going on around the world. There are wars going on right now. Global warming is taking a toll on our earth. There's a lot going on, a heat wave here in our country. And just think, for the past couple of years, COVID has kept us indoors. Now the heat is tending to keep us indoors. I'm doing a weekly faith study with about 20 people. We meet every Sunday at 6 o'clock. And we're doing a study to increase our faith. And let me tell you something, when you hold on and cling to God's word on a daily basis, it transforms your perception as to what's going on in the world, to keep you hopeful, to keep you faithful, because I'm telling you, the things that we see on the news, the things that we see on television is enough to kind of make you just to lose hope, to not even have any hope, to even question you or anyone else as to why do you have hope? Do you see what's going on right here, right now in my community? But I make it a point to stay connected spiritually in my word, with my spiritual sisters, with my spiritual family, with books that I read. I wish you guys could see my office here. I have so many books just on, I have a computer desk to my right, your left, with books on top, books in the shelves. And then I have a spare family room, a spare bedroom with a couple of bookshelves with some books on that. And I'm starting to see these little pop-up libraries in and around communities. And I said, you know, the books that I've read that I find useful, someone else may find this useful too. And this is no discredit to authors making money off of their writings, but why not share a good book with someone, especially if it's located in an area where there's a bench and some shade, and they just may walk over to that little pop-up library and grab a book and find that, wow, this was really, really interesting. I'm so glad they donated this book to this library. So what am I going to talk about today? Let me turn my phone off, and I'm not going to be long. I'm going to just mute my phone. They have a tendency to ring whenever I'm in a Zoom. That's okay. I pulled up an article from SAMHSA. And what SAMHSA is, it's a nationwide organization full of resources that talk about substance abuse and mental health services. It's almost like your go-to if you have a question about substance abuse, mental health, how it affects yourself or family members, how to talk and communicate with those who struggle with substance abuse and mental health, but it also have lots of other resources on that website that you may find interesting. And I did find something interesting to talk about as it relates to what's going on in our world and in our community today. And that's coping with grief after community violence. Doesn't it seem like community violence is becoming a normal thing? The tragic event that happened in Buffalo a couple of weeks ago, my hometown, and then a couple of weeks later, the tragic event that happened in Uvalde, Texas. And these may be little towns that that are not major cities, and cities that people think of traveling to or vacationing to whenever they're planning a trip to Texas. When you plan a trip to Texas, usually you think about Dallas or Houston, San Antonio, Waco, Killeen, some of those more well-known cities. But these smaller cities, just helps you to know that there's not just crime going on in the major cities in our country, across the country, but there's so much going on in these smaller towns that we don't even think about and we don't even know about until it blows up or until it becomes national news. And Buffalo has a dear place in my heart, always will, even though I do consider myself an Atlantan. I've been here since 1988. Good grief, almost 40 years, almost 40 years. When I left Buffalo, I graduated from high school, did a couple of years at Buffalo State, and decided to move to Atlanta just to start fresh, to connect with my son's father because he had already moved here. And when I got here, I fell in love with Atlanta. Everyone said that this was the Black Mecca. This is where Black people flock to, for history, the richness of Atlanta. And I fell in love with Atlanta, and I'm still in love with Atlanta. I love Georgia. A lot of people think that, or may feel that Atlanta is racist, but I'm almost certain that you can find racism anywhere that you go. But anyway, I'm getting a little bit off topic. Coping with grief after a community violence. And so the reason why I really want to talk about this is because sometimes when we see tragedy on the news and our body reacts and responds in a way that saddens us to the point where we're grieving over people that we don't know. We're grieving over a city that we've never been to. That forms an instant connection. It forms such an instant connection with us, I think, to help us to understand how interconnected we really are, even with people that we don't know, even with people of different cultures, different race, different religions, different backgrounds, different beliefs. No one wants to see or hear about a massacre happening in an area where people normally frequent on a daily basis to do something simple as shopping for food, picking up a cake for a birthday party, picking up flowers for someone who's sick, picking up dinner for an elderly person who couldn't otherwise pick up groceries for themselves. This is normal activity. And I think the connection in that, when we hear about it, the connection is we instantly think that could have been us. That could have been me, easily. And so when there's something that we feel that connects us long distance with people who suffer tragedy in such a way, in community violence. Here the article says, I'm not going to read the entire article, but I'm going to read a little bit about what the article says. It says, it is not uncommon for individuals and communities as a whole to experience grief reactions and anger after an incident of community violence. So I'm going to stop right there. It says it's not uncommon. So if you find yourself experiencing some type of reaction to something that happened hundreds of miles from where you are, happened to a people whose language you're not familiar with, if it affects you, there's a reason why. It's not uncommon. Don't kick your emotions to the side. Lean into it and try to understand what it is inside of you that's trying to awaken something in you to change the trajectory of what's going on in and around our communities that's evil. Because we can do it. We can't change the world, but we can change a person, one person at a time, just through our caring, just through our concern, just through our grief, just through just a connection of letting someone know, hey, I don't know you from Adam, but I'm feeling what you feel over here in Atlanta, over here in Las Vegas, over here in Chicago, over here in Florida, Miami, no matter where you are. It's not uncommon to feel anger or other grief reactions. Grief is a normal response to sorrow, emotion, and confusion that comes from losing someone or something important to you. Now, I didn't lose anyone close to me in the tragic event that happened in Buffalo. But in the area that it happened, I grew up in that area. I played with friends in my youth and in my childhood in that area. And some of my childhood friends still have family members in that area. So there is an indirect connection that I have with the loss that I felt when that happened. I felt it so much so that when the tragic event happened in Uvalde, I had to shut the television off. I couldn't even begin to start to absorb my feelings and my emotions from that event, because I was still in my feelings and in my emotions about the Buffalo event. And so it came too quickly. It came suddenly. I had to wait in order to grieve about that. Again, it says grief is a normal response to sorrow. Grief is a normal response to emotion. Grief is a normal response to confusion. You know, if you're confused, I think the question that all of us asked when that happened is, how could this happen? Why would this happen in this day and age? I'm confused about someone so young, so angry, so determined to raise his voice in that kind of way, to take someone else's life, not just someone, but someone's many, plural, lives. There's confusion there to make you wonder what is going on in the minds of people that feel that that is right to do, even if you decide afterwards, and this wasn't this young man's situation, to commit suicide afterwards. There's some confusion that comes with that. But grief is a normal reaction to when you're confused about things that happen, such as that tragedy in Buffalo and in Uvalde. Most people will experience a natural occurrence of grief after the death of a loved one, but grief and anger can be the result of other types of losses too. In situations of community violence, people may experience the loss of their sense of safety, their trust in those who live in their neighborhoods, their trust in local government, period. The trauma and the grief of community violence can be experienced by all involved. And that's just the first paragraph. And that's all I'm going to talk about today. Not going to make this long and drawn out, but if you want information on how to have a roundtable, how to have a discussion on how to talk about what it is that you're feeling, please reach out to me. I would love to set that up. on my Zoom account. You just, send the invite out to anyone who may be interested in talking about these issues and understanding how can you come together in order to address these issues in your community, because I think that's what it's going to take. So in closing, I'm going to talk about these three things that it lists here. It says, in situations of community violence, people may experience a loss of their sense of safety. That's number one. Whenever domestic terrorism happens in your neighborhood, when someone is walking down the street toting an assault rifle, I mean strapped, loaded, strapped, with not just one gun, maybe several guns. They may have a bulletproof vest on. They may have army fatigues on. I mean, they are ready, they are suited, they are booted. They come and drop themselves in the middle of your neighborhood. That's scary. Some people will have a reaction to run. Some people will have a reaction to hide. Some people may even have a reaction to, try to tackle him down so that he won't create more damage. They may sacrifice themselves in order to stop this person from creating more damage than they would if no one had tried to stop them. Your sense of community, your sense of safety is gone in that instant. Number two, the trust in those in the neighborhood. You lose trust in those in your neighborhood. In a neighborhood where community should come together and unite to protect their personal property, to protect each other and one another, to protect themselves, there's this fear that comes across you to the point where it's each man for himself. Everyone's going directly back into their own houses to try to protect what's theirs. There's no trust in community anymore. I remember growing up in a day and age where I knew everyone on my block. I knew their parents. I knew some of their cousins and relatives that would come and visit them. We knew everyone on our block. Now, granted, the block wasn't a huge, long block, but it was a block that housed at least 20 people or more, 20 families or more. We knew each and every person on that block. And sometimes we knew a little bit more than we should have known for people who lived in the community. But you know what? Everybody knew that I was Dot's child. Everybody knew that I was Jake's daughter. And then when my father died, moved to another community, everyone still knew that I was Dot's daughter. And they knew that Dot was married to Teddy. And they lived at 29 East Street. It was, we were family. There may have been one family that was a little bit more sheltered and a little bit more introverted and protective than all of the other families. But for the most part, we knew everyone on our block. In a society where there's domestic terrorism and community violence, your sense of safety is gone, your trust in your neighborhood is gone, and then lastly, the trust in your local government decreases. Everyone knows that law enforcement is established to serve and protect. But what happens when your law enforcement becomes corrupt to the point where you can't even trust law enforcement? Who do you have to serve and protect you? I think there are a few bad apples that spoil the bunch, but I also believe too that there are honest, hardworking law enforcement officials who signed up to do a job that needs to be done because of their love for community, because of their love for safety, because of their love for humanity. I do believe that. And I do believe that it is our responsibility as the community, grassroots level, families, neighbors, to help support police officers to keep your community safe and to keep your community clean. You know, I'm not promoting a snitch campaign to where you go around snooping, looking for trouble. But if people come in your neighborhood creating any type of disturbance or any type of unwanted behavior or activity that doesn't belong in your neighborhood, in your community, I believe that that needs to be addressed. I believe there should be community groups and community circles that forge together to protect your community. You know, we want to make the community safe for those who are wreaking havoc to learn how to put those guns down, to put the nonsense down, and learn how to live together in community. That's what we want. It's not about squealing and wanting to slap the cuffs on you and lock you away and throw away the key. It's not about that. It's about creating safe spaces where we can all live together and collectively in a humane way to develop better humanity. This article goes on to give reactions to violence. It talks about how long do grief reactions last. I can say a whole lot about that. And then there's some information on where to go to get more information. This article was found in the SAMHSA store. It's http://store.samhsa.gov, and SAMHSA is SAMHSA. And what you could do is you can probably go to Google and Google SAMHSA, SAMHSA. And once you get into the site, you can go in and search different articles on surviving grief and loss, coping with grief after community violence. That's the name of this article here that I'm sharing with you tonight. Other resources on mental health, substance abuse. And again, they are evidence-based. They are our go-to as community advocates and as court-appointed advocates here in the state of Georgia. We use their material to inform the community about how to deal and how to cope with certain reactions and certain things, emotions and feelings in order to better your health and better your wealth. So I hope you found this information useful. I hope I gave you enough to want to start the conversation on things that you can do to create harmony in your community, or even create harmony within your own hearts. So again, my name is Conceptual Empowerment. That's the name of my business. My name is Candace Sims. The name of my business is Conceptual Empowerment, bringing you empowerment through conceptual ideas on working things through, talking things out, trying to see a situation in several ways, not just from a narrow-minded perspective. And the more you conceptualize ideas and perceptions and awarenesses, it empowers us to use the strength that we have within to make the world, and not only the world, but our little area, a better space. Look me up at www.concepts-power.com and have a wonderful evening.